What's up, everyone? Today I'm going to be talking about math and numbers in Excel. I'm going to show you how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and all of the associated functions with each. We're going to cover several different functions related to how to round different values. And then lastly, we're going to cover all of the different ways that you can have Excel automatically generate random numbers for you. The first thing that I want to show you is probably the most simple thing that you want to know how to do, and that's how to add in Excel. So here in my data, I've got a list of different items that were sold at my store, the number that was sold, and the price. And let's just say that the first thing that I want to do is I want to get the total of all of these different items and figure out what the total of column C is here. So down below in A11, just to make this data clean and easy to follow, I'm going to write down total. And I'm going to move my cursor underneath the price, the last one, and then I'm going to double click into the cell. Once I've clicked into the cell, I'm going to type equals sum, and this is the most basic way that you can use a function to add in Excel. Once you have sum typed out, open up the parentheses and you can see that Excel has begun to ask you for different numbers. So what this means is Excel is asking you what numbers that you want to add, and you really have two options with how you put in your different values. The first way that you can do it is separating the values with commas. And what I mean by that is I could click on C2 or C3 here, it looks like. I could do a comma to move to the next number. And then I could do C4, comma, C5, and so on. And once I close the parentheses and hit enter, Excel is going to add up the different cells that I had selected. There's a quicker way to do this if you've got multiple cells that are in the same column or at least next to each other. So right now I've typed out my equal sum function, I've opened the parentheses, and I have typed C3. And instead of doing a comma, I'm going to put in a colon this time. And what a colon does is it essentially is going to drag and select the area between the first value specified and then the second value specified. So if in this example I've got C3 colon and then I'm going to click C10 because it's the bottom one of my column here, I'm going to click it and you can see that it's dragged down and it's gotten all of the cells between the two. So once that's complete, similar to before, I'm going to close the parentheses and then I'm going to hit enter. And you can see that Excel has automatically returned the total of the column. The second way that I want to show you how to add in Excel is with the SUMIF function. And when a SUMIF function is used best is when you've got a list full of values, but you don't want every single value in the list added. You want to only count some and not others. So in this example, let's just say that we want to see what the total of just the fries are. I'm going to click my total cell down below, the same one as before, and I'm going to type in equals SUMIF and then open up a parentheses. And you can see once I did that, instead of asking for just a bunch of different numbers, Excel has asked me for the range, the criteria, and then the sum range. So up first, let's go through the range. You can think of this as pretty much highlighting your entire spreadsheet. You want to make sure that you're highlighting both the values that you want added together, so in this example the price, and also what you want Excel to distinguish from. And what I mean by that in this example is I want to make sure that I highlight the area that says fries in it because that's what I want Excel to count. So for my example here, what I'm highlighting ultimately is A3 all the way down to, it looks like C10. So that's the range, and once I have that selected, I can click comma, and then you'll see below that criteria is now highlighted. And criteria is pretty much Excel asking you, what do you want me to count for? So in this example, it is fries. And since it's a word and not like a number, we need to put it in quotations. So I'm going to simply put a quote, type fries, I'm going to end the quote, and then I'm going to click comma. From here, that moves us on to the last section, which is sum range, and that's actually going to be within the same area that I highlighted before. And all Excel is asking for is, once I find fries, the criteria that you have me looking for, what do you want me to add together? And that might seem obvious to you looking at the price here, but from Excel's point of view, because we highlighted everything, it's not really quite sure if it should be adding together the number sold, which is column B, or the price. So in order to give it an answer, we're going to highlight the area that we want added together. So in this example, I'm going to click within that same area, and I'm just going to drag down the entire price column. Once I have that complete, I can close the parentheses and click enter. And you can see here that Excel has added up just the total of just the fries, which would be this $3 here, plus this $3.22 here, plus the $1 up ahead. The next thing that I want to talk about is how to multiply in Excel. So you might have noticed that the data that we did before was a little bit flawed, right? Because we did what the price of each was and we added that up. Well, let's just say that we want to find out what the actual price was that the customer paid. And to do that, obviously we just need to simply take the number sold and then multiply it by the price of each item. So we need to take column B multiplied by column C. So in order to do that, let's put it into column D that we have over here, and I'm going to name it total price. In D3, I'm going to double click into the cell, same as before, and I'm going to type in equals product. I'm going to open up the parentheses, and kind of similar to how the sum function was before, it's just asking for various numbers, and obviously it's asking for the ones that you want to have multiplied. So in this example, I'm going to click B3, I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to type in C3 or click on it. And since I've only got two numbers in this example, I can close the parentheses and then I can click enter. And you can see that Excel has shot out what the total would be. Rather than typing this same function over and over and over again, we're going to just drag it down so that we need to do less work ultimately. And in order to do that, I'm going to hover my cursor over the function, and I'm going to move it into the bottom right corner where you can see kind of a little green square. And you'll see that I move it over, and then all of a sudden a T will kind of appear. Once that appears, I'm going to click down on my cursor, continue to hold down, and I'm going to drag it all the way down to D10. And then once I'm there, I'm going to let go. And what's happening here is that Excel is taking the rules that we set up in D3 and then it's dragging it down so that it applies to every other cell related to cell B and C. It's multiplying everything. The next thing that I want to talk about is dividing. And then to do that, I want to just change the data around a little bit that we've worked with so far. So I've got the SUMIF function that we wrote originally, and it's asking for just fries. I'm going to switch that to just a sum function because I want to know what the total is in this column. I'm going to close it the same way as before. And similar to just how we just learned how that we could drag the formula down over here, I'm going to drag this same sum function one over to the right. So similar to how I got the total for each individual item here, now I've got the true total on this $83 over in column D with the work that we multiplied. Last thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to type up a sum here as well. I'm going to close it down below, hit enter, and I can see that it thinks that 21 is $1. I'm just going to drop down my cursor and I'm going to move that to general so that it knows that it's just a number. And now I can see that I've got 21 items sold total. So now I know that there were 21 items sold, and I know that we made in total $83. Let's just say that the next thing I want to learn is how to divide within Excel. And let's just say in this example that we want to see what the average cost of an item is. And in order to do that, we want to take 83 and we want to divide it by 21. And that's what's going to get us that data. So I'm going to type below the total for fries, which is actually just the totals now. I'm going to type average item cost. So in order to divide, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to click into the cell the same way as before. I'm then going to type equals, and instead of doing a function, we can actually just click the numbers that we need divided. So in this example, I'm going to click 83.61, which is cell D11. You can see when I clicked it, D11 appeared here. And then in order to divide, we want to use the forward slash. So once I've got that typed in, I'm going to click on the second cell that I want, which is B11. And then once I have both of those values, I'm going to click enter. And you can see after I've done that, that the average price of each item sold is $3.98. I don't have a really good example of when we would use subtraction right now, but let's just say that we want to take this 83.61 minus the 30.33. So same way before, very similar to dividing, we just need to click equals, the first cell that we want, and then there's kind of the hyphen button, more traditionally used as a hyphen, but we're going to use it as subtraction here. And then click, of course, on the second cell. And then once you have both highlighted, you can click enter, and Excel will automatically do the math for you. So we talked a lot about arithmetic. The next thing that I want to show everybody is different ways that you can round in Excel. The first and most common function probably used to round is simply equals round. So let's get some numbers, just random numbers in these cells here. And now that we have that, in this cell here, I'm just going to double click in, type equals round, and then open up the parentheses. And from here, I'm going to click on number 2 in this example. So once I've got B3 highlighted, you can see the second thing that it asks for is the number digits or number of digits. And all this means is Excel is asking you the number of digits that you want the number that you selected rounded to. So in this example, let's just try typing in 1 to see what happens. Close the parentheses and click enter, and you can see that it rounded to 2.7. Now let's go back into the function. And let's go in and click 2 this time after selecting the number. So instead of 2 number of digits, we're going to do, or instead of 1, we're going to do 2. When I click enter, you can see this time it rounds to the nearest 2 digits out, which is of course what the number is already at. So you can see here that the round function has a lot of different flexibility with how it rounds your numbers because you're able to select how specifically you want it to round. Of course, the last thing to mention is that you can type in 0 digits and it will go to the nearest whole number. The next function is round down, which is simply equals round down. And what this function is going to do is it's going to round any number towards 0. So I'm going to click on C3 this time, which is 3.23. And let's just say that we want to round to the nearest whole number again, which we know is comma, and then we're going to do 0 for the number of digits. You can see here that it also returned 3. And even if we were to take number 3, and let's say that we change the number to 3.76. Oops, 76, and then we click enter. You can see that the round down function doesn't change. And again, that's because it's not going to the nearest whole number like before with the first example that we did. It's always going to round towards 0. I'm going to switch that back to 3.23. And then to prove my point, I'm going to tell you about the round up function. I'm going to use the same number as before. I'm going to click 0 number of digits, which is a whole number again, close the parentheses and click enter. And you can see this time, regardless of what the digits are, the roundup function is going to bring you always away from the number 0. Even and odd also work hand in hand and are related to rounding. It's equals even and then equals odd. And all it's going to do is it's going to round to the nearest even or odd number. So I'm going to click number 3 here, close the parentheses. And you can see that it went to 4 in this example because 3.23 is closer to 4 than 2. I'm going to type equals odd down below. I'm going to click on the same number just to keep things making sense. And then when I click enter, it takes me to 5. And that's an interesting thing to note, is that the even and odd functions also, kind of similar to round up, move you away from 0 to the nearest even or odd number. The last function that we have available to us related to rounding is the floor math function. And to use that, all you need to do is type in floor.math. It's not just floor math, and then open up the parentheses. Once you have that done, you can see that Excel asks for the number, the significance, and the mode. And for this lesson, let's just focus on the first two. The mode one is optional, and I just want to keep this as simple as possible. So in this example, the number is going to be number 4, which is D3 in this example. I'm going to type comma, and then the significance is really where the strength of this function comes into play. What significance means is it's Excel asking you to what digit do you want it to round to. So you could either put 1 and it will take it to the nearest whole number. You could put 5 and it will take it to the nearest fifth. Or you could type 10 and it'll take you to the nearest 10th number. You're not limited to just these even steps. You could put things like 12 or 100 or anything that you want for significance, but you're the one telling Excel what to round to. An important thing to note is that Excel is going to always round towards 0 with the floor math function. So in this example, if I were to type 5, we might be tempted to think that it's going to round to 15, but in actuality, it's going to round to the nearest fifth headed towards 0. So in this example, if we close the parentheses after doing D3, 5, click enter, it's going to take us down to 10. The last thing that I want to talk about today is random numbers in Excel. And it's really cool. Excel has the ability to make random numbers for you, which can be really helpful if you've got like a contest and you want to assign everybody a number and then you don't have a program to make a random number. Well, if you have Excel, you now have that ability. There's 3 functions pretty much to make random numbers, and the first is simply equals rand. And what this does is, once you open up the parentheses and then close them, you don't need to put anything in them, is it's going to return a number, a random one, between 0 and 1. So you can see here it did 0.29, yada, yada, yada. If I were to type the same thing right next to it and say equals rand, open, close, and then click enter, it shoots out a completely different number. And actually, once I clicked enter here, it looks like it completely reruns all random functions within the spreadsheet, which is kind of cool. The second way to get a random number, which probably is going to be more useful for you, is the equals rand between. So it's pretty similar to the function before, but you can see once we open up the parentheses, it gives us a bottom and a top number that it wants. And it's pretty straightforward what this means. It's just saying, what do you want the number between? So in this example, let's say that we want it between 0. I'm going to type a comma, then to move it to the top, and I'm going to type 100. I'm going to close the parentheses and click enter. And you can see that it's now giving me a random whole number between 0 and 100. And just to prove the point, I'm going to type right next to it, equals rand between. Open the parentheses, and I'm going to keep it 0 and 100 again. Click enter, and you can see that it's giving me a different value completely randomly. The last function related to random numbers is random array or rand array. Try saying that 5 times fast. I'm going to type in equals rand array, open my parentheses, and you can see here that it gives you, or it asks for, a whole bunch of different things. It's asking for rows, columns, minimum, maximum, and then the integer. So when you do a rand array function, it's going to give you more than just one value. So it's super similar to the random between, but it's going to give you a whole spreadsheet of randomness. So let's just say for rows, because in my nice colored section here, we've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to type 5. And then I know that I've got 3 columns because I've got B, C, D that I want filled out. So I'm going to type 3. For min and max, it's wondering what you want the numbers between again, essentially. So I'm going to just do 0, comma, and then 100 to get the numbers between 0 and 100. And then for integer, you've got 2 options. You can type false or true, depending on if you wanted a decimal number or an integer, respectively. And let's just say that I wanted an integer because that is easier to look at. So I'm going to type true. I'm going to close the parentheses and click enter. And you can see here oops, some of them are formatted a little bit funny, but I'll fix that quick. You can see that it's giving me a complete table of random numbers. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to subscribe and give the video a like. If you have any questions or an idea for a future video that you want me to make sure to put it in the comments below and I'll definitely make it. Thanks again.